Hello, everybody.
Ahoy.
Ahoy. Welcome to the August edition of the Leader Games Studio Chat. I still haven't decided how we should frame it. I've been changing I think every time I introduce it, I give it a different name. We'll ask marketing what we should do. I hope you're all doing well. This is our first stream post-Gen Con. You're looking at two very well-rested staff members.
We took a week off. It was beautiful.
It was so nice to just not work for
It was
a little
crazy.
bit. I kind of hate typing things on my phone, and I did something new with this trip to Gen Con, which is I didn't bring my laptop. And I would open up our playtesting Discord and see the hundreds of messages piling up and thought, I'm not going to deal with this with my thumbs. I'm going to wait till I have a keyboard. And I didn't have a keyboard until yesterday, so it was perfect. Would recommend. We are coming back from Gen Con. It was great.
It was awesome.
Yeah, kind of like an amazing Gen Con. Similar levels of staffing to our big ARC show last year, but Matt obviously learned a lot about how to run the show really well, and we made some organizational. I feel like there were some small ways the schedule had changed, where I kept running into volunteers and asking how's your Gen Con going? And to a person, they all said this is the easiest, best Gen Con I've ever worked.
Oh, it was so smooth.
Yeah.
So many quality of life updates. It was great.
Yeah, and it was great too. We got to see a lot of folks, for the first time. I loved, running into people at the show, at the Hootenanny. We should talk a little bit about what we actually did at Gen Con too, right? So this was the release show of Ahoy. So we had this big presence. We're running tons of demos. So if you participate in the ARCS demos or the Ahoy demos, you already know what it's like. You come into the big room and we stocked people in. They were going to learn how to play the new Ahoy factions, and they got an hour or so to play around with them. And then as soon as they were done, kicked them out, brought in the next batch, so many people learned how to play Ahoy.
Yeah, 12 tables, each with 4 people, and then too many rounds.
Yeah. It was good. And
many people touched those.
It was just fun to
cool.
see people really engaging with the game and kind of exploring it. And then while that was going on in the back, I was running a somewhat secretive Oath campaign where we played a 5-game era, a little micro chronicle. Yeah. And then after every game, we gathered notes, and we used those notes to create our Saturday event, or part of our Saturday event, which was this somewhat absurd puppet show, which I'm sure we'll be sharing with you all at some point.
At some point, yeah. It was really cool.
It was cool. It went well enough. We did a good enough job that I joked to Matt that we were going to be cursed to do it forever.
At least one more time.
Yeah. Well,
and then if we do it one more time, we have to do it 3 times, so it's a trilogy.
I think we have to do it at least once more, which will make sense because we'll have the new Oath stuff next year. I think I got at least one more in me. It was funny, the night before that, on Friday, I ran the John Company Mega Game, and it was the second time we had done it, and this was a much more amped up version. And that also went really well, and I thought okay, so I now know what I'm doing the first Friday and Saturday of August for as long as I can possibly stand it. Because they both went really well, and everybody was I would have paid more for the ticket, and you should put more tickets in. I thought, all right, well, fine, we'll just run these big mega games. Although it is funny, I've never really done mega games. I've played games that were similar to mega games, but it's a hard design space to work in because there's something so intoxicating about being in a room with 50 people playing one game.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't matter what you're doing. And if you've ever run a big classroom activity, there's always a crackling energy in the air. It's not because the game is necessarily that good. It's because you're in this massive role play. A
little theater, a little mystery, a little big actual strategy game that you get a touch of.
Yeah.
It's a good combination no matter how good the writing is.
And for John Company, we had this rule that because we had so many players that you couldn't see the table unless you were invited up to see the table, which meant that there were people who were in charge of their families, matriarchs or patriarchs, who hadn't seen India in 2 hours. And so they're directing these vast schemes where they really don't know what the board looks like. And it just created
so
lovely
thematic.
games of Telegram. I watched somebody leap over a chair at one point to give one of their family members an extra coin to take with them to India for negotiating. And I'm like, this is good. It's a good moment happening. And there'll be more write-ups about that in the future. And then we pick up some games. Did you do any good Gen Con pickups or plays?
I managed to get a game of Lightning Train in, and I think I need to play it one more time before I have a true judgment, but because to be fair to them, we did miss a rule.
Sure.
But I don't know how much that rule would have changed my experience. 2 of the 4 players at the table thought it was really good. 2 of the 4 were unimpressed. So
How much, so I know very little about Lightning Train. How much lightning is there?
so little. So little.
Okay, that's a real bummer.
You have a chip that's called your Lightning Train chip that
Okay.
you have
So
in
it
your
is-
bag,
it
and
is
whenever
in the
you pull
game
it,
a
you
little
get
bit.
another train.
Okay, fine. Fine.
You get a secret train.
We played Cat in the Tower.
Ooh,
which
yes.
very pretty and kind of funny. I think that the production's fantastic. It has a very weirdly grafted on narrative that I was not terribly into. Where after you beat the
Interesting.
game, you flip the card over and there's a little micro short story that. To me, it's always hard to put those sorts of narratives in games, and it's especially difficult to put them in a dexterity co-op.
Yeah.
And especially because it has a kind of melancholic vibe. And so when we got to the very end of it and read the last paragraph, I was like, is this trying to make me sad about having, won the game? We haven't won on 20 stories yet, but I've gotten close.
Okay.
It's fun. My kids like it. It's going to be a good time. And then I picked up that. I picked up the new Diplomacy, which I then got a chance to play with my family, including my 2 older boys who are 9 and 11. They played their first game of Diplomacy, and I want to take their little order cards and I want to frame them because they have all their little orders written out and they're elementary school script. It's very good.
That's cute.
And they were such conniving little players. They played so well.
Oh, man.
Such clean backstabs. I'm so proud of them. And I'll say, if you like Diplomacy, the new version of Diplomacy is excellent. They did a really good job.
Awesome.
It's super interesting. And then I played some Vantage. Been Vantage.
Ooh, yeah. How have you liked it?
It's weird.
Okay, yeah, that's what I hear.
It's weird. So I think I was very unsure if I should pick it up because sometimes, I usually don't buy games that I'm not going to like, which it seems like an insane thing to say. But if I look at a game, there's sometimes you have a thought, you're like, I normally like Euros, but, and people will, including myself, will trick themselves into buying games they don't actually like. And then when they play it, they're like, oh, I don't actually like the thing that I didn't like, right? But with Vantage, I'd heard enough people say that it was interesting and even the parts that weren't successful were compelling. And so I decided to pick it up. And I'm a sucker. Anytime someone tells me they've been working on a game for a really long time, I'm in.
Just gotta see what they were up to.
Yeah, what does it mean to work on a project for 6 or 8 years? Yeah, of course I want to see what the end of that process is. And then it was compared at one point to Tales of the Arabian Nights or Tales of the Arthurian Nights, 2 games I adore. And so I thought, a visual version of a choose-your-own-adventure game, that's a compelling frame. I am so impressed with it as a creation, like a creative
cool.
work. It is
Okay.
huge. I solved puzzles, I fought a boss, I got lost in a funny little maze. There were lots of really neat things that happened inside the game.
That's awesome.
And all of that was good. The actual experience of playing it and the aggressive flipping through cards and indexing, I cannot stand. And so I have this very weird thing where I'm like, I think this game is kind of neat. I'd even be happy to play it, but the physical experience of playing it I find so abrasive that I do not know how long I'm going to hold on to it. It reminded me a little bit of. Here's the difference. So I was thinking about it compared to Iridia.
Yeah.
The big box dungeon crawler game. And that game also involves you flipping through a lot of card indexes, but usually it's you flip through a card, you add to the map or you arrange something, and then you're going to play in that space for 15, 20 minutes. With Vantage, the turns are actually really clipped. It's a very cleanly designed game, but that means that you're actually spending more time flipping through cards than you are playing the game. and that felt like a little slightly out of whack. I'm going to explore it more because maybe it gets cleaner, but I'm 3 games in, and I still haven't decided really what I think about it. But it is neat, especially if you're interested in those kinds of narrative games.
I think I saw you get the comparison to the Tales of the Arabian Nights, and I saw you make the decision to buy it, just mentally, visibly on your face.
I was very on the fence, and then I asked someone we have on staff who adores Stonemaier games. And so I know that when I ask for a Stonemaier recommendation, the answer is always going to be yes.
Yes.
But instead I got a very cagey, well, is it even a game? And it kind of reminds me of Arabian Nights, and I thought, okay, now I'm super compelled.
Yeah.
I'm happy I picked it up. The idea of the game as a digital game is really interesting because I didn't realize there was an app to do the book lookup, which is neat, and I will try to use it. Although I don't like app games generally. Part of me is is this just actually, should this have been a video game? Which I think it's hard to say that without being dismissive, because I don't want to dismiss someone's a 7-year creative project. But I do think that when we work on physical games, we should ask ourselves should I just be writing a movie, or doing something different? And I think that's especially apparent in the dungeon crawl role playing world, where I'll ask myself why didn't you write an RPG? But I don't know. I could ask that same question to myself.
Yeah, we were talking about Vantage at lunch too, and it was we were talking about games that fell into a similar vibe and experience. We were The Forest, the video game, survival horror video game from ages back, actually has a weirdly similar vibe.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I'd be very interested to hear about people who have played Vantage and who play a lot of multiplayer, wandering games. What video games would you recommend? Because I kind of love that space. There's a somewhat failed MMO called The Book of Travels that I think Kyle and I both backed and talked about a little bit, which I played just a tiny bit because was never quite done.
Yeah.
But the whole idea was it was an MMO that was just about wandering around and bumping into people and solving environmental puzzles.
Intriguing.
But it had no leveling in the classic sense or farming. And I really dug it. I thought it was a really neat idea for a game, and it was sad that it didn't get kind of fully realized. And then the new game by the Untitled Goose Game people, the Walk or whatever it's called.
Oh, I didn't know those then.
Which is just a game about going on a walk with your friends, and it uses proximity microphones and all sorts of nonsense of that order. And I think if that's what the Vantage video game or the Vantage's video game counterpart looks like, well, sign me up for the video game. Yeah. But I am still interested in it. I will probably play it, half a dozen times or something. But I might get somebody else to play the Card Librarian. It's my very short take.
2-player game.
Big Walk, thank you. Yes, Big Walk. Big Walk looks really cool. I'm excited enough for it that I haven't played Peak because I'm waiting for the Big Walk.
Yeah, I think Peak was the one that I've heard about, and it looks pretty good, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, so we should do some studio news. There's a lot going on right now.
We're busy.
We're busy. We all had our break. We had our break last week, and now it's time to get right into it. First, a little update about Root. Root is in pre-press right now. Pre-press is a weirdly long process. We've mentioned this in the past. It's not as simple as you turn over all the files. It's you turn over the files, some files come back, you got to rework them. Now you're waiting for a wash sample. Everything about Homeland is done, except we have not pressed the print button because we are waiting on a couple little things from the factory. It will be in production almost certainly by the end of this month. We are getting there. Once it does get into production, when it's about halfway through production, we'll be able to start forecasting precise dates and things like that. Again, we're so happy with how it turned out. It was so neat to watch Josh walk people through the game and just talk about the new factions when we were at Gen Con. It's wonderful. And so it'll be coming to you all as soon as it's done through production. On our side, we basically have done everything that we can. We're just letting the factory do their thing.
Yeah, we made a physical in-studio copy for Gen Con, and seeing Josh unpack that for the first time, it's so hefty. There's so much in it, and it's all really cool.
Yeah, it's neat. And if you are missing the fact that you didn't get a chance to go to Gen Con and play a lot of Ahoy with us, you should know that Ahoy is now on Board Game Arena in beta. So if you want to play, the adaptation is really cool. It's slick as heck. And you can get into a game right now because it's an open beta.
You can play with Matt's horrible all-crew strategy.
Yeah, correct. I think Matt's trying to win the leaderboards right now. So you can either facilitate that or stop him.
I think Matt's in every game that's ever been played on BGA.
And then a couple notes about ARCs. So first, we have really nice neoprene playmats. I guess I should have brought one down. Doesn't matter. We have nice neoprene playmats that are now on the store. You can get them right now. They turned out really well. We worked on this throughout the last several months. Printing on neoprene is tricky, and also when you're using such a dark design. And we went through a lot of drafts to get the color right, to work with the factory to make sure it really popped. It's great. It's a lovely map, basically the same size as the board, and it turned out really well.
It's beautiful. Honestly, I've had one as my desk mat for so long, I forgot it wasn't out.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm happy folks are getting those mats. And then lastly, we have an announcement, sort of. It's an announcement that many of you already know about, which is that we know what our next game is going to be. And this is Take, a game without a subtitle currently. So Take is our next big project. It'll probably be a late fall crowdfunding event. We don't know precise dates yet. You have to stay tuned for that. But I wanted to just talk a little bit about the design, its history at the studio, and if there are questions in chat, I'm happy to answer them, although there will be a lot more information about Take in the coming months. So Take, we announced this at Gen Con. You can sign up right now to be notified when the crowdfunding campaign happens. It was kind of fun. We tucked the Take banner in the back of the booth, and then every day it kind of slowly got closer to the front. So Take is a negotiation heist game. It's designed for 3 to 5 players, but it also has a very fully featured solo mode. It was designed by our very own Ted Kaya, so our executive director of operations here, and Ted has been working on this game forever. As long as he has been at the company, he has been working on Take. It has been a thing where every month or two he would knock on my door and be like, "Hey, can we play Take after work, or can I show you this design?" And as it's interesting because the longer he worked here, I think he got a deeper appreciation and a sensibility for what a studio game looks like. And I could see Take sort of evolve into an excellent leader games game. It is very intriguing. So, speaking for Ted a little bit, I think it comes from a bit of a dissatisfaction with how we do heist games and what it means. The heist movie is such a wonderful genre, but it always has a trouble being transposed to the form of a board game. And you could say that, role-playing games like Fiasco, really put a curl on that, or Blades in the Dark can do it well in a role-playing space, but it's something else entirely to do it in a board game space. So Ted, he read a lot about heists and watched a lot of heist movies and tried to find a way to build a game that could capture some of the feeling, the conniving, the planning, and then the executions, both successful and not, that have given that genre this amazing life over the last 100 years or something of heist movies. It is just kind of hitting some of the mechanical points. It is a competitive game. So you are on your own. You are trying to enrich yourself, but you have to work with each other. When you are planning heists, you are often bringing people in. You're figuring out how you're going to split things up. It is very interactive. There's a lot of interesting risk management and really neat powers. One of the things that makes it fit so well at the studio is that it has a very expressive range. There's a lot of interesting powers that when you read the card, you're like, oh yeah, this is how a jewelry fence would work. and this is how it's working inside the space of the game. So it allows you to tell these really robust stories. And when you're resolving a check, I mean, very rarely does a check result in a clean pass or fail. Like if you are having to drive a getaway car, one of the mechanisms of the game, something that we were talking about this morning, is that you actually have to drive the getaway car through the streets. And all of those things sort of come together to allow the game to tell really wonderful emergent stories that force players to have all kinds of relationships with each other. So it's very collaborative. At the same time, it is an extremely competitive game.
It's really neat.
As someone who's been cut out of many deals in a game of Take,
yes,
there's interaction. If you are interested in the game, please do follow the Kickstarter page. We will be announcing the date for the crowdfunding campaign sometime this fall. We are hoping it is a campaign that we run this fall, but these things are always, we have to wait and see. But we're very happy about it. The game has been worked on for so long. Nick Brockman will also be the lead dev of the project, which I'm very excited about. He worked on, of course, the Ahoy expansions. Then before that was Fort. But this is a title that a lot of people on the studio, in the studio who've worked on projects are going to be coming together and working on. Of course, Kyle's doing the illustration. And what else do I have to say about Take?
Genuinely, I can't think of another prototype that we've had in a state of literally made in Microsoft Word, and we can play it for 4 hours, boisterously laughing, having a great time. It's really good.
and it is such a weird title because it is so, like, I don't know what final development is going to look like, of course. But it has also been in like, not a finished state, but like a pretty mature state for, at this point, like years. We just were trying to figure out like the right time to put it on the schedule, and it just felt like the right time. Okay, cool. So that's Take.
Yeah. We've been working through the recommended reading list that Ted has provided.
It's very fun.
It's good.
I'm sure it'll get posted at some point. We had some fun meetings like several months ago where everyone was just like listing favorite heist movies, and then talking about like what parts of heist movies like made them work or not make them work. We'll have a big reading list and watching list for people who want to get in, who want to be in. Correct, and no one plays the cops. Thanks, Kyle. All right, so with that said, we are going to spend some time talking about what's been going on in Oathland. We have been making a ton of progress and getting the design ready. I want to just like zoom out a little bit to talk about where New Foundations is and what the next like few months look like, and then we will talk about the storage box a little bit. We will show you a ton of art. We're going to show you some of the mechanisms that we're working on in the game, and things of that on that order. So in the summer, as Root was finishing, we made the call to have Root finish before Oath. A lot of reasons for this. One of them is, probably the biggest reason is that the Root print run is so much larger than the Oath print run. We have to get it in progress a lot sooner if we want to have them release even remotely at the same time. And also the Root project had gotten a little further along. Josh had done a really good job with the faction design. They were tightening up nicely. And it had a smaller art ask. So we said, look, all those things together, let's make Root our big summer finish, and then Oath will become our like fall finish. A lot of the team then kind of moved over to work on Root. Now we kept working on Oath that whole time. I never really left the Oath project, and the kind of core team of Oath kept pushing on it. But now that the Root project is wound up, we've been slowly moving resources back over to Oath. And we are going to be completing Oath over hopefully the next couple of months, basically. In July, we did a pretty aggressive review of the entire Oath design. We read every card together. I would sit down. Alita and I were the architects of it, where like we would just print out like Xeroxes basically of these packets of all the card information. It
was like a classroom. We'd all sit around a table, hand out packets.
Yeah, and then we would sit there with our pencils, and we'd all talk about every little card. And that review was really successful. I think we tightened up a lot of parts of the design. We also identified certain issues with the design that some of them were ergonomic. We'll talk about one of them in detail in a little bit. And then we put all of those things together to build the Oath kit that we took to Gen Con. And the idea was this Oath kit for the kind of 2 weeks of our Gen Con trip was going to be a way that we could take the project's temperature. Was it really feeling honestly and truly done in all respects? And I'll say, having run those Oath games at Gen Con, it responded, we got a very good response. People really liked it. And I think no one who played Oath in those games would be that upset if that is the thing that we published.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a sneaky second thing that happened, which is I knew that we would be playing and thinking about Oath for a long time during Gen Con, and then we would have to stop for a week. And that week is important because now we can come back to that design and say, okay, but like, are we really truly done? And that's the kind of thing that's hard to do if you don't take a break. But I wanted to make sure we built this little pause before we ended like the final finishing round. So for the next 3 weeks, we are doing another design review where we're looking at everything. We're just making sure that it's all really cohering exactly as it should. And then we are also doing the very final pass on some of the content. Currently, we're hoping to be done with our kind of with everything by mid-September, and then have this off the factory by October or so. There's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns because here's the thing: we might find something that we want more time to adjust. Currently, Oath is running very slightly behind its initial schedule. We had hoped to have it to you all by kind of the end of the year. It'll almost certainly be like a Q1, Q2 next year. Look, this project means a lot to everybody who's working on it. And if we want more time on Oath, we're going to take more time. So we can talk a little bit then about what Oath looks like right now. So let's see. We've got a lot of cards here on the table. And I'm going to remove things as we look at it to just talk about the elements. Look at this. Perfect. So first of all, look at Kyle's art. It's perfect. Yeah, we'll talk about those in a bit. So we have almost all the art done. Now we have 2/3 of the art done, but all of the card art is fully done. So we have these are new cards from the Denizen deck. The Denizen deck, by the way, is designed to work with base Oath users and also people who are playing new Foundations. So we've made it double purposed. Kyle also did a ton of art for the new relics. I'll put some of those out here too. There's the Spiteful Mirror.
I gotta go hunting for my favorites.
Yeah, please. The Magic Water Skin, which was used, I think, was an element of like a dozen games in our last Chronicle.
This one's so contentious at the home Chronicle.
Yeah, people fight for it. My favorite goofy card, the Whispering Stone.
Whispering Stone's real good.
Yeah, which
I think it's also in Fort.
Yeah, so you can see we have, there is a slightly new layout here. You can see, I don't know if this is going to work. Don't worry about it, Matt. There's a little value right here. This is the value of the relic, which is sometimes cited. And then we had a few little adjustments that we did to the layout. The old relic iconography had a jumble of dice in the corner. We found that it was just a lot clearer if we used a single number. So we're reprinting all the relics. It just didn't cost that much money to do it properly. And so you will see this improved layout. Even for relics that everyone knows, like Skeleton Key. Now I'm going to try to find one that hasn't changed.
Truthful Heart.
Yeah, Truthful Heart.
I'll take this.
That's always been. There you go. So this is the same relic that was in the base game, but it now has this value here and a value there. Truthful Heart, by the way, has a 0 because it's very easy to take. Cool. And then for these, I think there's I think it's 10 of each.
Yes.
So there are 10 of each card for the new Denizen deck, which is a lot of additional Denizens.
So many beautiful cards.
Some of the art, by the way, I mean, this is a good example. This was originally a Shadow Denizen that we then like repurposed and used the art. You'll find like there are a few Easter eggs for the people who are really deep in the Kickstarter page. Yeah, I don't know. These are all fun. These are all good cards. The Whispering Stone, I want to shout out this card's power. This card costs a secret and allows you to have a private negotiation with another player, as if you were at the same site, which is a little zany and silly, but I've seen it used so many times to such lovely effect.
It's so good.
Yeah, it actually is, and I think it just speaks to the kind of like loosening up of what Oath is and can be, that we have an item like this that like works perfectly in the game. Okay, so that's the new art. Kyle's doing a great job. I actually just got a piece of edifice art, and I'll talk about the edifices here. Let's use the stone portal as an example. So here we have the current edifices. Here's the stone portal. These have gone through just like a mountain of adjustments, and we're still working on the exact banner treatment for this graphic here. But we do have now ruined sides and effects on all the back of these edifices. There are 30 of them, 30 unique edifices. So there are updates for the 6 that were in the base game, and then we have 24 brand new edifices that are really wonderful. Not all of them are totally brand new. For instance, like the Tome Guardians over here. This card used to not be an edifice, but it is now an edifice. It got kind of promoted, and I'll have Kyle draw a version of this where there aren't heads on the statues or something to show its ruined side. So we basically, any of the cards that were locked site cards in the base game have been promoted to edifices just because of how the design is shaped out. And we'll get to that. Do you want to talk about
Lost Guardians? Is just they drop their books.
Yeah, they just dropped their books. So Tome Guardians, if you don't know the card, basically, if this card's ruler has the Darkest Secret, you can't take it in campaign. You have to use the regular way of getting the Darkest Secret. The Lost Guardian side, this is a new frame that is a setup effect, and it says during general setup, you put extra secrets on the Darkest Secret, and then no players start with it. So it just makes the Darkest Secret a little harder to get. It can pull it from the Oathkeeper at the very beginning of the game, which is interesting. And there is a variant of this that also does it for the People's Favor. So you'll see some of this set of effects in the game, just giving a little bit more of that individual chronicle character.
Yeah, they can make different games that are playing by the same foundations and everything feel really different and give a lot more motivation and character to how you want to deal with sites within the game.
Yeah. Let's talk about the banners. So here we have our new banner piece. This is a 2 mil thick piece of punch board. Here's the banner of the People's Favor. Is very similar to the old banner of the People's Favor. There's some little adjustments to how playing cards to a site work. We have a new icon here for how the favor is returned. Basically, the old way that when you bump the favor off the banner, it gets seeded into the banks. That has been codified into a more standard mechanism. It's just called returning favor to banks, and we have systems for that here. And then let me show you the Darkest Secret. Here's the adjusted Darkest Secret. This one is the Darkest Secret, the festival, and the festival has this power that says enemies cannot use cards at your site. So wherever the player of the Darkest Secret is, their site is essentially on lockdown. Now, the word enemies has a very specific meaning in Oath. If I'm fighting Alita, we're enemies for the purposes of that battle. Outside of that battle, you have to opt in to become someone's enemy. So if I want to let Alita use cards at my site and I've got the festival going on, I can do that, and it's something that we can talk about, negotiate around. This is a power that is a little bit more thematically grounded. It also creates interaction, and so I'm really happy with how that turned out. Now, on that same note, let's talk a little bit about, I guess the sites are hardly worth talking about. We should talk about the traits. So here we have our trait cards. There are 37 of these right now. Feeling pretty good about most of them. There's 2 that are a little boring. They all have their individual conditions on them, a little suit at the top, and then an actual power that is sitting there. These are in a spot where they are playable, they are fairly interesting. I'm curious if we change them structurally at all. Because there are some places where they can develop, but we put a lot of interesting little powers on them. I want to talk about, in particular, though, 2 traits. Where's the other one? Which have this really ugly red box on the bottom. I'm not going to ask you to read this. I'll tell you how it works, so don't.
Oh,
Matt, you don't need to worry about zooming.
This one also has ugly Sharpie on it.
Yeah, it does.
Don't worry about that.
Because I noticed an alteration, and I was at Gen Con. I was like, well, only one way to fix this. So these are traits, but normally the way a trait works is if you have this trait and you can't do it, it's going to flip down to its inactive side. These two traits, if you can't do them, you pass them to the player who can do them, which means that once they activate, they kind of stick around the game.
Yeah, they'll rattle around for a few games as long as
Right.
somebody at the table is doing it.
So the Iron Hand is one of my favorite traits in the game. It has really interesting implications. Basically, in order to manifest it, you have to be an exile that rules 4 sides. And what it does is it means that instead of saving the empire of the winning player, your empire is the one that gets saved. So it kind of lets you preserve your own kingdom. And if your kingdom falls and Alita takes over, she gets to be the Iron Hand for a while. And then a third player, their kingdom comes up, they get to be the Iron Hand for a while. But as soon as that player wins the game, this stops manifesting. Because you need to be in exile to have it like trigger. So what you'll see then are these like weird, like, you know, pocket despots will like emerge. They'll be tyrannical for a few games. And the empire will be like an empire in exile, where you'll have a chancellor and even citizens who don't own anything and are instead living in the Iron Hand's empire. Now previously, this was a power that existed as a foundation. So there was a foundation on our foundation board that you could turn on and off that determined which kingdom was getting saved. But one of the things that we learned in July is that we found that there were certain foundations that players just couldn't, that were ergonomically awkward. And so one of the biggest projects that we worked on in July was figuring out what parts of Oath are, you know, it almost gets back to Vantage a little bit. Like, where am I running into the limits of the game as a physical object that has to be manipulated and played versus where are the places where the physical object is actually allowing the game to even jump larger. And so we found out a really simple thing that we probably could have, you know, found out just by talking to somebody, but instead it took months of deep thought. Any power that is owned by a player is going to be enforced. Because Alita is interested in enforcing a particular power, like toll roads is a good example, right? And powers that are not linked to a specific player, people forget about constantly. Now, in ARCs, we got around this slightly by having that little booklet. But the little booklet actually isn't what makes it work in ARCs, it's the edict phase. Because when you resolve the edicts, you start at 0 and then count up. And it forces you to like flip through the booklets one page at a time and get everybody on the same page. We didn't have anything like that in Oath. So what we did is we looked at our 18 foundations and we said, okay, some of these are setup effects. Setup effects are very easy to enforce because you check them during setup, and then once you have set up the game correctly, you don't need to check it anymore. And then the other ones that are easy to enforce are ones where a specific player gets the benefit. So for something like the Iron Hand, we pulled that. That used to be a foundation that said, hey, the player with the largest empire, their kingdom is always preserved. We instead took it off and put it as a sticky trait, which means it'll kind of activate throughout the game, it'll stick around for a while, and then it'll leave by itself. It has big foundational implications, but they're implications that are linked on Alita's player position. So you get to be responsible for it. I'm using it as the example of the despot here, Alita.
Appreciated. And also, one of the kind of other nice things that this adds is once it's owned, it can go into slumber. It could hide for a bit within your character and reemerge. There's like a lot of different ways that it now can behave within the game that add a lot more character to the player position instead of the box as a whole.
Yeah.
But also influences both.
And I can see a world where these, like where we have more traits like this, or these move to like a slightly different class. I like where the power is sitting right now, but I think there's a lot of fertile like ground to be explored there. So to that end, what we did then is we took all the foundations, the previous 18 foundations, and we said, okay, 6 of these actually have to do with setup, and we will make them on-off switches that players can choose to turn on and off when it comes to setup. And the other, 12 or so, we might call, they're almost like traits. And so we created this new class of trait called a legacy, And the idea is, instead of previously you would have just like activated a foundation, now what you do is activate, you found a legacy. So, speaking a little abstractly here, here's how it works in practice. If you end the game with the banner of the people's favor, you get to change one of the game's setup foundations. And if we go over to here, this little board right here is the foundation board, and players actually use this as a game guide. It tells you how to set up the game. And in the center, there are these 6 setup steps. And at the end of the game, you can spend influence here to change this setup step. Now, some of these setup steps, they're all pretty dramatic. They all really change how the game works. So for example, giving Alita credit where credit is due, one of them says, you're going to set up the banks how you normally set up the banks. You're putting 2 favor in each bank plus 1 for every denizen on the board. The reverse of that says, well, do you want to say how it works, Alita?
Players just start with all the favor.
Start with all the favor. You
Banks
put in a big
are
pile,
empty.
you split it among all the players, banks are empty. And it's like turbo oath.
It's so dumb. It's wonderful.
There's a variant on that for the Ties of Fellowship. Ties of Fellowship says everybody gets 1 starting advisor. Put some cards in the discards. The reverse of Ties of Fellowship is a divided world where you divide all of the cards among all of the players. So basically, players, their advisor slots start full, the discard piles are stacked, and the world deck is just the 5 vision cards in a stack. And it's absurd. But it really has a different character. You feel like you started the game in like a bustling city.
Yeah, it's crazy how much, because of how Oath is built, everything works. Everything still feels like Oath, but it feels like such a different character to the game. And then you feel the lack in different places,
right,
where actions that used to generate things don't anymore. They have a different purpose now,
right,
and it feels so wonderful and different.
And for getting these things, you also get if, for example, if you turned on, I don't know how these cards work, but if you flip one of these things over, you gain one of these little foundation titles. It just says like, hey, you were the person who did this. And it's worth points at the end of the game. It gives you like a little bonus. And then later, if another player takes it from you, they'll take the blue version of this card, they'll flip it over. Oh my gosh.
You're welcome.
That was like a little magic trick that just happened. So they will flip it over and say, actually, I'm the person who turned it off. If someone turns it on again, they'll take it, and then it'll be on its red side. So players will be like fighting over the ownership of the game for no other reason than they were the ones who helped create it, and they'll get all the credit. Now, there is another, so this covered about 1/3 of the foundations we were able to put in this setup system. But the other foundations are a little weirder, and so while the player with the player with the people's favor, here it is, the player with the people's favor gets to hang out on this board, which, by the way, 2 of these change which side the people's favor's on. This reverse side, we're still working on it, but basically this is the old vote to become chancellor law. It lets people's favor do it. We will need to build in some discard. My current thinking is it's an action that discards all the cards at your site and then makes you chancellor.
That's funny. Yeah.
It's a little conclave action. Yeah. And then the Darkest Secret also has the Vow Breaker variant that lets you avoid chain restrictions. Potentially, I would like this to be negotiable, where you can do it for other people. With a player's consent, you can discard their chain cards. So those are all here. That covers a lot of that element of the game. And then the other element are these. These are the legacies. The legacies come in 2 varieties. So basically, at the end of the game, if you have the Darkest Secret, you can found legacies. And if you found an Imperial legacy, you will become a citizen if you're not a citizen already. And they are going to change how the Empire works in little ways. And then the exile legacies will force you into exile if you want to take them. And these are going to give you pretty game-altering powers. So for example, let's talk about the Seer. This is one of my favorites. So when taken, you become an exile. And its power is during setup, you gather the visions and choose where you want them to be in the deck. So the deck gets shuffled. They can be anywhere in the deck. You know which visions are in which positions.
It's so silly. It's wonderful.
And so you go into the games and you're like, I could just ask the seer where the vision is. And there's all sorts of history that comes with it. However, one thing that we're sorting through right now is right now when you become an Imperial player, you lose this. One of the things I want to talk about is like, what if you could just keep them and they had a different condition for losing? So you could have like the seer chancellor. Anyway, something I'm thinking about. I do think that taking it should still require that you get kicked out. They do all sorts of things. One of them, Arbiter, gives you control over the game in die. This one actually replaces the old vote by acclamation. We had this system that replaced the die with like a vote. Really hard to get it to work right, and eventually what ended up happening was one player has tempo control. What if we just codify that into a lineage, a legacy rather, where it's like, yeah, you earn tempo control, you'll have it as long as you don't win the game, and then when you win the game, it flips out. Again, that trigger is something that we're still working on. The Grail quest, this one's a little special. Basically, if you take the Grail quest, you cover up the game's victory condition with the Grail quest for the next game, and the victory condition for the next game will be have the most valuable relic, and that's it. And it just kind of like tilts the way the oath works. Yeah, so that's those. And then these are the Imperial ones. There are 6. I think one of them might be missing.
One's in a box.
One is in a box. That's right. The one here that I think epitomizes it best is the Royal Line. The way Royal
Line's awesome.
Yeah, the way it works, and the text here is not quite right, but basically, if you are an Imperial player and you have the Royal Line, you determine the succession condition. Now, that it's bonkers because it means that you can just pick among the citizens which one should win. However, if you pick the wrong person, you might find yourself exiled as a holder of the Royal Line. So usually you don't want to give it to yourself. You want to like use patronage and try to hold the little empire together. And then some of these basically take different jobs that the Chancellor had. Like the Golden Key gets to use the reliquary. The Grand Marshal gets like a very powerful infighting battle plan. The High Minister lets you give and trade legacies. This one's a little soft. I've got a better cut for that. But when an empire collapses, if you were the Golden Key, it doesn't matter. Like you're in exile now, so this card gets lost. So this allows the empires to develop essentially like laws and offices that give it identity that then when the empire falls apart, the identity goes away. So they're a little bit like the old offices in a very, very early cut of Oath. Is there any chance of more legacies? We'll see. Partially, okay, there are 2 answers to that question. There is design space. I'm quite convinced that Oath has a lot more design space in it. I don't know if we have dev time.
Yeah.
So like we kind of know what we need to get it to work. But I also can't keep working on this forever, even though I'm having a really good time doing it. So we are in the kind of final stages of the project right now where I do think it's likely that we're going to see something like this much design content. I don't know precisely where everything is going to be sitting. Someone asked about late pledges. Very good. Thank you, Brooke, for posting that link. You can still late pledge new foundations. Very good. And I don't know.
And after it goes to backers, it will go to retail for
Thank you. Yeah.
my dear Fernando Secco. The comments.
Yeah, what else do I want to say about it? We've been playing Oath over the break, over Gen Con was really interesting because we were able to teach it to new players.
Yes.
And they were interesting. We didn't require people who had played Oath to play in the Oath event, but we did recommend it. And I played with people who had played a lot of Oath, people who had last played Oath like 2 or 3 years ago, and people who had never played Oath and had been like Oath curious, but had never like actually.
Just a wonderful spread.
Yeah, it was like a completely like lovely spectrum. And I am so happy with how the core changes and cleanup went. And we might do another stream later where we talk about like, here are the rules in Oath that we changed a little bit. But basically, we went through the design and all the parts that were a little awkward or a little strange, we just cleaned them up. And it is playing very, very smoothly and is telling stories at a much higher resolution than it's ever been able to tell them before. So I'm very happy with how it has turned out. Okay, well, that's what Oath is doing. I want to talk a little bit about so actually, one other little note about Oath. If you're interested in new foundations, if you wish that you could play it right now, you can. It's on Tabletop Simulator. You can join the Woodland Warriors, and it's not very hard to find in the game. There is a workshop link, which I think is even on the Kickstarter page, that will take you to the dev branch of the game. We no longer have an internal dev branch that's special. We just have one branch of the design. We usually push new versions like every Friday or every other Friday. It's been a few weeks. I've got a few things I'm going to be pushing out probably this Friday. Yeah, you can play it now. And we will probably be doing at some point in the fall a live stream game as we get dev done, just so people, because I've had a few people request like to just see the playtesting group play Oath. And so I was going to talk to Matt. Matt, I need to talk to you about maybe running some Oath live plays down here in the basement at some point this fall. So we'll see when we have time to do it.
They can all learn about the horrors of the Horse Empire.
Yeah, correct. The horrible Horse Empire. Box prototype. We have one, but we are waiting on a vacuum tray from the factory. And it was we thought we'd have it, but the actual box design. Oh wait, 1 second. I have one little thing. Bonus feature. We've got two things. Oh my gosh. Psych. There is a box. It's very small,
so small.
now. So we showed these earlier. The box the Oath storage box that we're working towards is about the same size. It is the same size as the Oath Blighted Reach box. And there are going to be a number of different ways to use it, but we will have like a recommended way, which includes a lovely display of these little boxes. We've shown these before, but I wanted to show folks how they were coming. We don't know exactly the material we're going to use. We don't know exactly the flap and construction. We're still figuring that out. But you can see on the inside of the box there's room for a player's cards. And then we also have this little panel that organizes the war bands, and it will, if this were a player board, it will line up with the supply track so that you don't have to count your war bands constantly. You can just use this little track to see where they're at.
It's so nice.
It is nice. The Chancellor is also going to have a longer one. And then when you're done, you grab your little box, you put your little war bands in it, and then there will be, you'll have a trait, you'll have at least a couple trait cards, maybe you'll have a starting denizen that will go on top, and then you can just kind of close her up. And then for this box is the Atlas box. This is not final art, this is just what we have. The way this works, that's why we have all these sites. So this has a cut here, like a swoop, and that is because relics and things, we're checking sleeve size. That's what's happening. Close.
It's so close.
It's
Megan and I were messaging about it today.
So the way this works, because in new foundations, relics will get lost on sites. So we found that if we had a center scoop, if you pulled out this top site, it would accidentally put the relics on the site beneath it, which we did not want. So by having this edge, you can just kind of tap it, and then when you're taking out sites, you grab the whole packet and then put it in play like that. So this box is interesting. There's a chance that we put it in the new Foundations product, or it might go in just in the Oath big box. That's something that we are figuring out as we look at exactly the product profiles and what makes the most sense. There's just a couple different ways that sites can be stored, and we're still sorting through it. It's also a little big. Yes, there'll be more puppet shows with the new Oath plays. Don't know. I don't know.
Which new Oath plays? Gen Con next year?
We'll see. Oath plays in the office? Only sock puppets.
Yeah.
I'll
do a puppet show alone next year at Gen Con if I have to.
There's
me and the sock puppets.
There's a good, unfortunately very blurry photo I took of you doing two puppets when we were doing the rehearsal. It was Alita in full motion. Yeah, so there you go. That's all the box stuff we have to share. We will have some box stuff to share probably next month, hopefully. For our September stream, Liz is going to be showing a ton of stuff about the solo and co-op. I'm very excited for you all to see it. And then after that, we'll have things to talk about. All right, well, thank you all for joining on the stream. As a reminder, the new Ahoy expansions are out right now. You can get them on our web store at this minute. You also can find the new Oath Neoprene playmat there. If you are curious about the Oath puppet show or anything like that, watch this space. I'm sure we'll be posting something at some point. And if you'd like to follow along with Take, check out the link that was dropped in chat. We are currently gathering signatures for the launch of the campaign.
We're really excited. Gen Con was awesome. It looks like it's going to be a great year going forward.
Yeah, looking forward to it. All right, thanks everybody.